NottsRockCast is an association with Regular Riot. Welcome to NottsRockCast, the Notts Alternative Scene podcast. And here is your host, Jethro D, bringing you everything Notts and rock.
Welcome, Notts Rockers, to NRC-015 over YouTube. Yes, we are getting them out thick and fast. There is a few episodes that you probably will not hear on YouTube because they're not a chat, so you'll still have to go to the podcast player. But don't forget to hit that subscribe button and ding that bell to be notified every time a podcast does come out on YouTube. Let's get to the chat. Welcome today. I'm doing a podcast with Sami Brown, Mr. Hexx himself, if you don't mind me saying.
Thank you very much.
Sami's the events organiser at the Salutation Inn on Maid Marian Way, and he also is in a band called Flirting Corpses.
Flirting with Corpses.
Flirting with Corpses. Do you know what? I keep getting things wrong all the time. But I put him in the chat seat today to kind of give you an insight into what his role is within the Salutation and what it's like being in a goth band, would you say?
Well, we're a metal band that just wears makeup, I suppose.
Oh, okay.
We've not got very many gothic aspects about us, apart from some ambient noise, but mostly it's just a generic metal band.
Okay, fair enough. Would you like to introduce yourself and tell us what you do, more than what I've just said in your own words?
Yeah. Well, I just say my name's Sam Brown. Other people know me as Sami Hexx. That's my DJ name and name I use when I'm in the band. I worked for the Salutation. I've been here for 5 years in June. I also DJ. I DJ a night called Hexx, which is a really original name for it, given the stage name. But that's like a 2000s, 90s rock, metal DJ night. It's got podium dancers, and it's every third Saturday of the month.
Which are known as the Hexx Girls.
Yeah, the Hexx Girls. Cool. Not to be confused with the ones from Scooby-Doo, which only had one X in the name, whereas these have two X's in the name.
Okay, you've just lost me there. Scooby-Doo, Hexx, Girls, what?
Yeah, but there was like, apparently, I can't remember if it was like a Scooby-Doo movie or like just a TV program one, but there was a all-female rock band called Hexx Girls, but it was only spelled with one X. So, no copyright infringement.
Oh, no, that's good, that's good.
I won't have Scooby-Doo knocking at the door.
Yeah. Well, you don't want them knocking at your door, especially it's like being a bit gothico you are.
Yeah, I'll try to rip my face off. Old man Jenkins.
Right then. Do you want to give us a quote of inspiration that you've learned from your time in Notts, or a quote that just comes to mind that you say quite often?
Well, I don't know about a quote that comes to my mind often. I mean, the way I got to where I am in Nottingham at the moment, because I'm not originally from Nottingham, I'm originally from Derby, well, specifically Belper, and I was just like some average kid who was, like, you know, drifting through, and I had musical interests, and I had a few mates which had musical interests, and it was just one of my friends who said, oh, after school, I'm not going to sixth form, I'm going to college in Nottingham to study musical engineering. And I was like, that sounds incredible.
Wow.
And, you know, it seemed a lot more interesting than going to, like, learn about ICT and, you know, what else was I going to do? Maths. So, yeah, came to Nottingham. I used to travel every other day on the bus for an hour and a half just to go to Confetti in Nottingham. I went there for 3 years. And just through going there, I met other people in Nottingham, naturally.
Yeah.
Which is how I ended up going to a gig at the Running Horse, where I met two people who later I found out to be in Flirting with Corpses, who asked me if I knew any guitarists. At that time, I'd been playing guitar for about 5 months. And I was like, I could try out myself. And they said, yeah, go for it. Ended up turning up one day, just playing some random riffs, which I'd not practiced at all. Just turned up and gave it a go. It was very relaxed and like the least, like, you know, daunting interview I've ever had, because one of them was playing Xbox and the other one was just kind of on their phone. And after about half an hour of playing random riffs, they went, yeah, you can join the band if you like. And I was like, well, there we go. So now I'm in Nottingham in college doing audio engineering, and I've now joined a band.
Oh, that's cool.
So later on through, Nicky joined the band, who works at the Sal.
Yeah.
And through knowing him, when bar work here cropped up, because one of the old managers got fired and he had some of his family working for him. So when he got fired, his family went with him.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, like, the bar was like really poorly staffed because half your staff's gone. So Nicky kind of rushed me in and said, you know, if you can work the bar, I'll train you, you can have a job. So I was like, wicked. And through that, I got my job here and ended up, you know, eventually, it was 2 years ago yesterday, I became the events manager at the Salutation. And it's just kind of being out there and just going for things, and rather than thinking if, but maybe, just go for it, because that's how I got to where I am, from being small average kid in Belper to the events manager at a rock bar, which when I first came here 7 years ago, thought it was the most magical, wonderful place in the world.
That's really cool. I must admit, as soon as I walked into this place, which I'd only seen the downstairs the first time I came in,
Yeah.
I thought it was an absolute brilliant place, and it wasn't under the management that it was now, but like, I didn't even know the upstairs existed till I came back like a month later.
A lot of people
Suddenly
don't.
there's a gig, and we're actually sat in the upstairs at the attic, as it's known, right now, doing this chat.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, it's surprising how many people don't realise there's an upstairs here, because a lot of people come in through the back door, come straight in, and they even go out the front door, and just, there's a massive set of stairs, but people just don't go up there, because for a long time in the middle of the week, upstairs would be closed, because there was not much point putting on someone on the bar to like have working when there was only people sitting downstairs, really. Whereas recently we've incorporated a pool table, and as business continues to pick up, we will be having someone on the bar upstairs in the week as well as downstairs. And the theme that the boss is going for is going a bit more back to the old school, where upstairs was like the rock bar, like as it is at the weekend, and downstairs still having like the jukebox and the music, but going a bit more to the historical side of the pub, with it being from 1240 and a really historical building. You do get some people who come to Nottingham, go on the pub crawl of going to the old trip to Jerusalem, the Bell, and they come here. And it does put some people off that they walk in and, you know, behemoths blasting out the jukebox, and they're like 60 and just wanted a nice quiet pint in a historical pub. So we're not going to get rid of Behemoth anytime soon. But we're just going to make Behemoth louder upstairs.
But this isn't a personal attack on Behemoth.
No.
It's just the music, I think, mainly. Which, as much as we all enjoy it, well, at least I hope every listener that does listen to this does enjoy some form of rock music or alternative music. But yeah, I see some people come in here, especially with families and stuff, and don't realise that, yes, it's a rock bar and also a historical pub, which I love this place. I've got to be honest. I'm really glad to be in a position where Jay has said to me, if I need to use the caves, if I need to use upstairs, if I need to use the snug, I can do it. So hence why the Sal gets a mention as much as possible.
Yeah.
So, right, you have told us where you're originally from, which was going to be my next question. But that's cool. But you've also told us your profession as well. So, next question after that was, how did you get started? And I'm sure you've just covered that as well, which is brilliant.
Yeah, I mean, like I say, it was a case of one of the old managers got the sack. And it was really quite funny, because I'd made some friends with some people like the weekend before. No, it was the Wednesday before.
Yeah.
Sorry, the Tuesday. Right, there we go. We're there. I'd made friends with these people on the Tuesday before I got the job here because they were travelling through to go to Download.
Yeah.
It was Download weekend, and I used to DJ at Bar Schnapps. The good old days.
Oh God, that place has ruined me so many times.
Yeah, man.
Doesn't exist now. I don't know what it's called now. I can't remember what it's called, but
it's still Bar Schnapps. It's changed its name a few times, but as far as I know, it's Bar Schnapps.
But they ain't playing the sort of music that they used to play.
We've not got reprobates like me DJing in there anymore. No. It's just another St James Street bar, I think. But yeah, anyway, I made friends with these people who come up on the Tuesday. We're staying in a hotel, and we're going to get to Download as early as possible on the Wednesday.
Yeah.
And they were like, "Yeah, man, we've brought all this booze. If you're going to Download, camp with us." I went, "I haven't got a ticket." And they went, "Well, if you can get into Download, you can camp with us and just share our booze." So I was just going to like sneak into Download that weekend and just hang out with some people I'd met who were from Norway, I think.
Yeah.
Because, you know, I had nothing better to do. And then, like I said, got offered this job, and I was like, party with Norwegians or have a job. And evidently I chose the job.
Oh, right. Yeah. Fair enough.
It's just a random story I remember from when I started here.
No, that's really interesting. This is what I keep trying to say to people. The amount of times that I get certain events crop up and say, "Oh, why don't you come and join us? And why don't you come and do this, that, and the other?" And it's like, if you are an outgoing person, I can't remember what it's called. It's like an extrovert or something like that.
Eccentric?
No, because you get an introvert and you get an extrovert.
Yeah.
So if you're an extrovert, sometimes when you're talking to people, yes, you get opportunities that just randomly crop up. Well, but that's how I kind of met Red Rum, so...
Yeah. Well, that's, like I said to you earlier, that's exactly how I ended up with this job here. It was just kind of going, yeah, I'll give it a go. I mean, like I said, when I joined the band on guitar, in my mind, I was like, I ain't ready to play for a band yet, but I thought, well, I'll give it a go, and if they say, no, you wank, you can leave. Sorry, I'm allowed to swear.
Yes, you are allowed to swear. Do you know what, I have to say this every now and then, but if you'd listened a couple of podcasts ago, it's like, yes, I rate every episode explicit for the simple fact of, I don't want to inhibit what people are saying.
Yeah.
If you're going to say something, so long as you're not being detrimental, there's only two rules, like I sent in the notes. No Brexit, no politics.
No.
Because that's a hell of a lot of politics at the moment. So,
and, you know, it's a rock podcast. So,
yeah.
You know.
Well, that's what I'm trying to say to people. It is literally a rock alternative podcast. I am going to be speaking to a few other people that are more into the acoustic side of it soon, which is interesting to me.
Yeah.
But the alternative scene covers so much.
Yeah. Well, it's like Nottingham, as far as I know, has one of the largest amount of rock venues and rock bars in it. I mean, if you look back about 5 years ago, there was a lot more. But it's like the Angel is still putting on metal and alternative gigs as far as I know, but you've lost the Turf, which wasn't a venue, but it was like a dingy rock bar that was open
It
till...
was an early morning club. That is the only way I can describe that place. Yeah. It's an early morning club.
Yeah. But there was just so many more venues around, and unfortunately some of them have drifted off, like the Greyhounds, John. And
the Greyhound, where was that?
In Beeston.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. And, but yeah, like, you know, some come, some go, but fortunately we're pretty cemented in the ground as carrying on for the future.
Well, I should hope so, considering how long this pub's been standing here.
Yeah. I mean, I remember the boss saying to me, it's pretty much been since the 60s that this has been a rock kind of biker bar, because apparently, I don't know if he mentioned it in his podcast, but there was an old biker bloke come in once. He says he remembered when he first came in here in the 60s, might have even been 50s, I can't remember. But he said that bikers and, you know, leathers and whatever weren't allowed in places because they were just seen as trouble causers. Yeah. And they came into the cell and just spoke to the landlord. They went, look, before you throw us out, because we're bikers, we're just coming up to you and asking, we know you've got an upstairs, can we use it to hang out? Listen to some music. And he went, as long as you behave, do what you like upstairs, And it just snowballed from there, apparently, because they were just not allowed in places. And then there was a point in the 80s where you weren't allowed upstairs if you didn't look like a rocker. There was someone on the stairs downstairs who would judge you by how you were dressed and go, you're going downstairs, or yeah, you're allowed upstairs. Because the scene was so big and strong in the 80s.
Do you know what? Jason didn't mention any of that.
No.
And that is... Wow, okay. I'd never heard of that story about this place.
Yeah.
So that is something that's very,
Yeah.
very unique in some ways, I suppose. But like you were saying about the whole someone would judge you, I like that nowadays people don't judge you in this place.
It's very different, like, nowadays, because we get a lot of people coming in who are from, like, all walks of life. And, you know, they say, oh, yeah, I like Metallica, but you wouldn't guess it to look at me.
Yeah.
And they think that we're going to make a prejudgment when they come in as to what they're going to like and whether we'll get on with them or not. But we're not going to do that because we don't want other people to judge us who look alternative.
Yeah.
So just because you have a normal job, which, you know, you might not be able to have long hair, a face tattoo, and love life on your knuckles or whatever, doesn't mean that you're not allowed to like the same type of music that I like, because it's just an aesthetic. People like what they like. So,
But I think the biggest thing, like you were saying about the biker crew back in the 50s, 60s, and I'm sure that was probably round about the rocks and mods time. Nowadays, I keep trying to tell people, you will see people who are into metal and alternative, and you'll think they're probably trouble. But to be honest, they're the nicest people you'll ever probably meet. And I keep quoting my time at Bloodstock on this one, because I go to Bloodstock every year and there is no trouble.
no.
And you go to some festivals, I'm not going to tie it in, but some festivals, you'll go to places and there will be police on the grounds. Bloodstock doesn't have police on the grounds.
No.
It has security that walks around, and the worst thing that happens is they get shouted at and called butt scratchers.
Yeah.
So,
They get told off for taking the bins off of people from doing bin jousting.
yes, yes, unfortunately, bin jousting has become not a thing, which is a bit of a shame. So, what compelled you to be into the alternative scene then?
Well,
Coming from Belper,
I know, coming from rock and roll Belper. See, ever since I was younger, I liked Queen, because I have a really strong thing in my mind that We Will Rock You was like the first song which I properly liked. And the ironic part is, I used to start it again as soon as the guitar solo kicked in, because I thought that sucked. I just like the stomping and clapping bit.
So hang on. Let me get this straight. You didn't like the guitar solo, and you become a guitarist who's actually really good at solos?
No, I don't play solos.
Oh, do you not? I
No.
thought you did. I swear I've seen you play solos.
My primary instrument is actually the drums.
Oh, fair enough.
Yeah, I've played the drums since I was 13, so 11 years. And when I joined the band playing guitar, I was 19, so yeah.
Oh, wow. So you obviously restarting Queen from the beginning of We Will Rock You, and then snowballed from there on.
Yeah, really, because we ended up, well, my mum liked things like Def Leppard, Guns N' Roses, so that was always on the telly. The earliest memory of a music video I have is Word Up by Korn, because it's all like the dogs with the human faces.
I love that song.
Weirded me out loads, but it stuck in my head, and I thought, this is weird, but cool in the right way.
Yeah.
But I remember the reason I got into, like, music properly, rather than just listening to it as background music, because that's all it was, really, when I was younger, was a friend of mine in school got, like, a guitar for Christmas. I was like, we have to form a band. This is going to be the coolest thing. We're going to take over the world. And he went, what instrument do you play? Oh, I don't.
Oh, right.
And he says, right, we'll make a band if you get drum lessons. Because obviously, at some point along the way, he'd realised drummers aren't very easy to come by. And this guy who's really eager to start a band and plays no instrument, I could probably mould him into a drummer.
Yeah.
And it, just started from there. That, like, through that, we played all the AC/DC covers, and we did like a few Metallica songs, and that's when things were getting a bit heavier in musical tastes. And the way I got into more alternative, heavier alternative music is the least cool way possible. Because I discovered Slipknot on Guitar Hero. It changed my life.
There's nothing, I've got to be honest, there's nothing wrong with that. Personally, I don't think there's anything wrong with
I mean, it's cool that it did that for me, and it probably did it for a lot of other people, because it took the guitar and it turned it into a game, which was easy for everyone to play along to.
The only thing that I have an issue with, and I saw it come up on a billboard on the tram, was Rock of Ages, where they've taken rock music and kind of made them poppy songs and put it out to the masses, and suddenly they're all like, I'm a rocker because I'm listening to something that's a bit pop.
It has a guitar solo. It must be heavy metal.
I was thinking earlier this week, I literally been sat at work with these new headphones I've got, and I've been listening to a lot of older 70s music. Now, the amount of panning in it is ridiculous. Yeah. But it dragged me back listening to Led Zeppelin of an earlier memory of a friend that was hiding her CD case because she'd labelled every one of the CDs, and on Led Zeppelin 2 she'd written heavy metal.
Well, it was back then, I suppose, wasn't it?
Well, that's the thing. Led Zeppelin always turned around and said, we're not heavy metal, we're not heavy metal. I don't think they even class themselves as rock because, what's it, 80% of the music is acoustic guitars? Yeah. So, yeah, I'm not sure on that. It's probably 83% because that, you give that figure all the time.
Because it's Led Zeppelin as well, so nothing's going to be straightforward, is it?
No, definitely not. So, other than what we talked about, is there any special mentions or more details about yourself that people probably don't know? Any hobbies or passions?
I mean, I've got quite a few hobbies. I mean, I'm not exceptionally good at like one particular thing. I'm kind of a jack of all trades. Like it's like with drums, guitar, I play bass, I do backing vocals. It's like I'm not exactly like the standout musician of like any particular instrument. Like I say, drums is probably my best instrument, but I've been the same like my entire life where all of a sudden, I think, do you know what? I'm going to be a skateboarder. And I'll skateboard for like 3 months solid. I'll get all right to the point where I don't fall off and hurt myself every day. And then after those 3 months, I'll go, right, I'm going to play bass. I'll play bass for like 3 months. And it just, all sorts. It's got to the point now where like a lot of the time, someone will ask for some help with some random thing. It's like the recent one I've got into is soldering, because I had to re-solder something the other day, and I was like, wow, that was quite easy. And all of a sudden, like one of my mates who runs the open mic on a Sunday here, he was like, you fixed that guitar, didn't you? And then you sold on for like a bit more money. And I was like, yeah, why? Oh, well, you fixed mine. I was like, well, I suppose so. But I enjoy doing it. But I guarantee in 3 months there'll be something else that crops up.
No, fair enough. You know what I do all day long as a day job?
Soldering.
Yeah, I make guitar cables.
Yeah.
And I literally sit there and make about 1,000 cables a week or something like that. All depending on what they are. But no, soldering, I tell you something, it can be, what was it someone said to me the other day? He said it was the most therapeutic thing he enjoys doing, and at the time I was rewiring my studio. So I was like, dude, if you want to come round, I'll give you my house key, and you can solder all these wires and patch bays that I need.
Have your therapy.
Have your therapy. I get my studio done. But I'm really happy to have that done now, to be honest. So, no, soldering is a weird art. It really is. I learned it when I was about 6, so
yeah.
If you enjoy it, you enjoy it. Right, more to do with the events in the South. So you took over 2 years ago.
Yeah.
And the biggest memory I have is the fact when you took over, I suddenly saw a billboard go up of Massive playing here.
Yeah.
And I was like, fucking hell, you've scored them as an act. And you've actually done really well at getting so many well-known names that I think, you're doing a really good credit to yourself on that one. How do you find being an event manager, and what's it entail day to day?
Well, a lot of the bands that we get here, most of the time, I just hire the room out to people. Like, I'll have a promoter message me and say, I've got this band, I need to put them on. Have you got this date free?
Yeah.
And, you know, some of the promoters we've had have put on a few gigs. They've not made the money back, so they kind of go, right, you know, I'll call it quits. But kind of started to build up a foundation of promoters who do put on real big shows, and they make their money, the bands make money, we make money, it all works full circle.
Yeah.
Because I've noticed I get like loads of messages every week. Hi, we're from California, we can play at your venue for just £500. And it's like, well, I've never heard of you. And if I've not heard of you, I'm not saying that no one's heard of you, but it's part of my job to know who's interesting and who's not.
And you have quite a big vocabulary of music. Every time we've talked about random bands, it's you do tend to know most of them.
And it's just at the point where we can't be taking gambles with massive amounts of money with a band who might be from LA, London, wherever. Because, like I say, if I booked every band that messaged me, we'd have, well, gigs on probably every night of the week, but whether anyone would be here or not is a different situation. Yeah. And, you know, it's a lot of money to keep paying out. So, like I say, at the moment, we just work very closely with promoters, and promoters put the bands on because as promoters, they know the bands on the scene.
Yeah.
And it's kind of impossible for me to know every band on the scene. It's impossible for me to be at all these gigs that happen around Nottingham because I work here at the Sal 5-6 days a week.
Yeah.
So
it's not just the events you do, you also work behind the bar still.
I'm also a bar manager, so, you know, constantly working. But, you know, it's not a bad job at all. You know, I feel incredibly lucky to have the job I have because when I work on the bar, there's busy shifts, but I know how to handle them. But for the most part, I get paid to chat to people, stand behind the bar and listen to music, and occasionally have a drink.
Yeah.
So, you know, it's not a bad job.
Well, this is something I said in the podcast, and I'm sure you said you heard Jay's podcast, and I just said everyone that works here is such a credit to himself because you're always cheery, you're always chatty, you always put up with me at 3 o'clock in the morning. Yeah, but it's really nice to hear personally, because I've said it, and it's nice to hear from someone within this establishment that it is true what I've said. So,
Yeah.
and he thinks you're all nuts.
Yeah. Oh, you have to be to work here.
Fair enough. Right, what hurdles did you personally face, and how did you overcome them doing this?
Oh, as the events manager or just generally working
As
on the bar?
generally as you in life, I guess.
It's me.
Or as the events manager, whatever springs to mind.
Like I said before about getting 1,000,001 messages from bands saying we'd love to play, we'd cost £400.
Yeah.
You know, when I first joined as the events manager, I had a few other friends who did similar things like in Manchester, Birmingham, and I just straight up messaged them. I was like, how do you know how much a band is worth? They went, well, we don't. And I was like, well, how do you work out how much to pay a band? Because, you know, it's all well and good, but I could take Flirting with Corpses, send out 1,000 emails to any venue, say, we're from Nottingham, we only charge £400.
Yeah.
They probably don't know who we are. They could find us on YouTube and what have you, but if we're putting out that message, some people might start saying yes. And at the point where we are right now, I know that we're not worth £400 a show, but it's a very strange thing for a venue which has to fork out for the sound engineer, someone to work on the door.
Yeah.
You know, you've got to pay the band, make your money on your beer, because that's where all your money's coming from.
Yeah.
Make the money back on the door. And unfortunately, the rock scene isn't a charity. It's not a case of, yes, money appears out of nowhere, and we'd love to have as many bands as we possibly could, but the venue has to make that £400 back. And
yes.
I don't think that a lot of bands think, well, you know, we're definitely going to make all this money back for people because it's their product which they're selling.
Yeah.
So they've got to set a foundation mark for it. But it was incredibly hard working out how to rate how much a band is worth. And that's why I said I started working a lot closer with promoters, because promoters know the bands who pull, they know how much money they can charge on the door, so they know how much they can pay the band.
Yeah.
I mean, we've done it a few times where bands have been desperate to play, asked for like £200, £300, and we've gone, well, you know, if you think you're worth it, we'll take the bar take, you take the door take.
Yeah.
If you make £200, £300, that's fantastic. And some bands just go, no, we need the money guaranteed. And to me, that sounds like you're not that trusting in your own product.
I completely agree with that. And something just sprung to mind. Threaten never contacted you, did he?
No, I never got a message from Threaten. No.
That'd be quite funny. Yeah, because you do get, like, if you don't know who Threaten is, it was a guy that decided to start a band. He paid for a load of Facebook likes, a load of Facebook friends, signed up to a European tour, convinced all of the venues that he was going to be making big money, and his mum turned up.
Yeah.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
I completely understand where you're coming from on that one, and I think the best thing that, like you say, is for promoters to do the night, because they know they have to make money.
Yeah.
And they know whether a band's going to work or not, because they'll have put them on before at whatever rate.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I think... But don't take it... if you don't mind me saying, don't take it to heart of don't contact Sami if you're in a good band. Right? And how do we contact you again?
Well, through the Salutation In Facebook page, or there's the email, which is thesalutationvenue@gmail.com. That's
Cool.
what I use for all the Sal work stuff.
And that will be in the show notes if you want to get in contact. But if you're a promoter, if you're a band, definitely get in contact.
Yeah.
Be honest. I think is the thing we're trying to get at here, because you're going to get nowhere if you're trying to sell yourself.
Like I say, I'm not trying to put bands down at all, because like half the reason I have this job is because I love live music. I'm not saying that try and book a show here and we'll not give you anything, because we tried to do as much as we can as a venue, but we can't just throw money at people, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I still have to pay to get into all of your gigs.
Yeah. So you
I'm
should.
promoting the place. Right, I'm going to get on to the last question, and then we're going to take a break, and then we'll come back to it. No, that actually was the last question. Oh my God, I'm completely out of it. Right, okay, we're going to take a break, and then we'll come back for the second half, which is Not Some Rock.
Nice.
Wow, that was reverberant up there without 100 people in it, trust me. But anyway, don't forget to go and check NottsRockCast out on your favourite podcast player for more stuff.
Welcome back to NottsRockCast. I've got Sam Brown, Mr. Hexx himself from the Hexx Nights, Grenade Nights at the moment, isn't it?
No, I've retired from Grenade, because Grenade originally was for when Submission, which was a previous night we had, didn't have any bands to play, so I just did a request-themed DJ night, which was Grenade.
All right.
And it was just free entry, something to do on a Saturday. But I noticed that because it goes Wild Side, which is always super busy.
Yeah.
Grenade, which was picking up.
Yeah.
Hexx, which gets pretty busy. And then the fourth Saturday, which is kind of a DIY promoters night for Saturdays, because I understand it's hard for promoters to get Saturdays, so we leave that free for promoters to kind of go, I've got this band, want to put on an all-day festival. It needs to be a Saturday, because everyone's after Saturdays, so we leave that free.
Yeah.
But I noticed DJing Grenade and then DJing Hexx, I was getting a lot of people who come to Hexx, coming to Grenade, requesting all the music I play at Hexx.
Yeah.
And it kind of took away from Hexx, because that was like my main idea, because I noticed that for some reason, the whole 90s, 2000s era of rock and metal wasn't getting much playtime at like places. You know, you were going everywhere, and it was classic rock night, and it was blues night, or you know, all this kind of stuff. And I just thought, you know, I haven't been anywhere in ages, which is just playing like Slipknot, Machine Head, Devil Driver,
like the new metal era.
Yeah, the new metal era, like all the stuff that I grew up listening to.
Well, that's all the stuff that I grew up listening to.
Yeah. So I just thought, you know what? I used to DJ at Bar Schnaps. That wasn't a specifically themed night. That was just play rock, metal, whatever.
What you fancy.
Yeah. And I'd been pushing to do something like Hexx to the old manager for quite a while. And he was like, no, you can't do it. You need it on the bar. And then when I became events manager, what I said went. So, yeah, kind of give myself that night.
Okay. So your Hexx nights.
Yeah.
I just want to ask about Podium Girls.
Yeah.
Do you want to give them a couple of them a shout out? Who are they? What do they do? What do they bring to the night?
It's run by my girlfriend, Christiana, and she has a few regulars, which she has all the time. I mean, you've got Ash, who works here. You've got Abby. You've got should know more of them. Like I say, it changes month by month. Paula doesn't do it often because she's quite poorly at the moment. So it's if she feels up to it, she'll come down. But yeah, like I say, every month it changes because people are available, people aren't available. But there's a massive group of girls who are, you know, in the choosing. Like I say, Christiana sorts it all out. Yeah. It was really weird how Hexx became what it is. Because, as I said before, I had this idea for a DJ night, so I did it. Okay. And then my mate Phil Taylor, who is currently working at Albert's as their events person and sound
another
engineer.
Person I need to get on this podcast.
Yeah. He said, have you ever considered putting bands on at Hexx? I was like, well, I could do, but I don't really know who to put on. And like I say, it was around the time when I was having the problem of how much is a band worth, how do we do this? And he said, well, I'll sort it out. I'll book the bands because I know who's good. So basically he became the promoter because he does run Armageddon promotions and puts bands on. And then, you know, we had bands playing and Phil sorted the bands out. And I was like, cool, I'll carry on DJing. And then Christiana approaches me and goes, you know, Wildside has podium dancers. I was like, yeah. She says, well, how about if we had him at Hexx as well? And I'll find some girls and we'll do it. And I was like, yeah, sure. And all of a sudden, this little idea I had of just playing some music has just snowballed into bands, dances, and it's just a bigger event now than I thought it was ever going to be. And like I say, the podium dancers, the reason for them is they're on the stage. I'm pointing, but you can't see that on the podcast.
Well, I can see it.
And they're stood on the stage, on the podiums, and it's just kind of it gets everyone else going. If they look up and there's girls dancing on the stage, then they're more likely to get into the swing of things. Because a lot of people like metal, but it's not always dancing tempo. Yeah. Sometimes it's a bit fast, a bit slow, and some people just come in and stand around and chat. But
remind me, I must play you some music that I've been working on.
Yes. And but having the girls on the stage, obviously, everyone likes to look at girls who dance. And
I was going to see, this is where I was. It wasn't a loaded question. I was just wanting to ask it, but it isn't about just ogling at girls.
No, not at all. Like
ogling.
I say,
what a word.
Yeah. No, it's not about ogling at girls, oodling at girls.
Getting people up.
Yeah, it's about adding energy. I mean, I think in America, podium dancers are called go-go dancers because they just get everyone going and they interact.
I've not heard of that word in a while.
Yeah.
But yeah,
it's just kind of. The idea is to just add more energy to the room because you've got the PA system blaring, the lights, the smoke. But you walk in and some people just kind of need a bit of a push. It's like an empty dance floor. Someone's got to be the first person.
Yes.
And
usually me.
A lot of people don't want to be that first person unless they're you.
Yeah, well, I'm a bit of an idiot.
Yeah. So yeah, it adds another layer to the event.
Yeah.
And like I say, it's become a bigger event than I ever planned it to become, but it's not a bad thing.
And it's packing out most evenings, isn't it? So that's really good credit to yourself and definitely to your other half, Christiana.
Christiana.
Oh, yeah. No, she did say to me when she first introduced herself, she was like, yes, my name's hard to get. I was like, well, usually I don't remember names, so yeah, it's going to be even worse. Like I was trying to get at, it's worked really well, and I think it's one of them evenings. And to be honest, I keep shouting you out in the gig guide, which is really good. So Nikki's just walked in. Yeah. Say hello, Nikki. Lead singer from Flirting with Corpses.
Who also works there.
Yeah. Yes. As I say, I keep shouting out in the gig guide, so you're getting a bit of response there. Yeah. And I don't mean to harp on about these things, but how easy is it to add NottsRockCast to an event?
What, as a admin or to add it?
As in, like, for this shout out, because you keep adding me. Or at least I think you keep adding me. Someone keeps adding me to it.
I don't think so.
Oh, well, it's not you doing it, but I keep shouting it out because it keeps coming up on the calendar.
I keep inviting you to it.
Oh, that's what I meant.
Yeah.
The invites. How easy is it to invite NottsRockCast to your event?
Easy, because you go on your event and you go on share, and it comes up with a list of people it suggests. And obviously, if you've been doing something like Hexx or any event for a while, you get the same kind of people responding. So it kind of algorithms detect that they're the likely ones that you don't want to invite. Because you can't just invite everyone from your friends list, because that's just spam, and no one likes spam. No one from America is going to be interested about a night that's happening in Nottingham, because it's not likely that they're going to travel all that way for it. And but yeah, NottsRockCast comes up because, well, I invite you, because you've always said, like, if I know about it, I'll talk about it.
Yeah. So I just wanted to say that because it'd be nice to get across to the people actually how easy it is.
Yeah.
Because a lot of them I'll put up saying, if you want to get a shout out on the podcast, then send me an invite. And people will post like comments below about their nights, and I'm like, that's not what I just said. But it's nice to get the clarification after I said it correctly. But right, let's delve into some of these questions now, because we've had a good chat about things. But what do you love and enjoy about living in Notts? Not so much the alternative scene, but Notts itself, considering you were living outside of it.
Yeah, well, I prefer Nottingham a lot to Derby. Okay. I kind of missed out Derby growing up because, like I say, I'm from Belper, smallish town, and I started coming to Nottingham when I was like 17, 18.
Right.
So I didn't really get that turned into an adult in Belper, go out in Derby because it's the big local city. I kind of already sidestepped it and started coming to Nottingham. But I think Nottingham's got a lot more going for it, not just on the alternative scene, but like, you know, it's like the city centre's nicer. There's like big green areas. Like for ages, I was convinced Nottingham was some big, horrible concrete jungle. But, you know.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because there was like, in Derbyshire, you've got a town, and then you have to go 3, 4, 5 miles to get to the next town.
Yeah.
Whereas Nottingham, especially around the city centre, you just keep walking, and you go from town to town to town, and there's no deciphering thing. There's no big patch of green field in between everywhere. It's just towns and towns and towns. But like actually wandering around and looking for places, it's like you've got Attenborough Nature Reserve. I went to there yesterday, beautiful place. You've got Wollerton Hall. You've got Forest Fields, which is like, you know, real close to me, so it's nice to walk around. Got the Arboretum, that's nice. Like it's just kind of got these little areas of like green nature, which, like I say, I had to look for them to find out they were there. But
yeah, have you been up? You've been up to the Arboretum?
Yeah, I live right next to the Arboretum.
Pardon?
I live right next to the Arboretum.
Yeah, no, I just was thinking about the Pagan Festival last year. I saw you there as well.
I saw you there.
That was really good.
Yeah.
Can't wait for this year. Hopefully it's going to be as hot as last year.
Well, I hope not. I'm ginger, so I burn. It's not because I'm a goth, I promise. But
If you haven't met Sami, I'll just try and describe him without being too offensive. If you've watched the It Crowd, he kind of looks like Richmond out the server room. But, right. Do you want to tell us a story or myth about Notts or something locally interesting?
Trying to think. I mean, I told you that thing earlier about the
Rockers?
The Rockers, yeah.
Yeah.
But trying to think of interesting random things I know, because when I have friends come up and visit from like all over the place, I'll just take them around Nottingham. I take them to places like the Canal House, because it's quirky when you get inside, because it's got the canal running through it.
Yeah. That's where I had the reception for my wedding.
I was there.
Yes, you were.
And I'm trying to think of like a random story, which I tend to tell people. But they all escape me right now. That's the problem.
Yeah.
I should have prepared for this earlier.
I did send you the questions.
I know, you sent them me, well, how long ago was it?
Do
Well,
you want me to come back to it?
Yeah, we'll come back to that.
We can come back to that one if we remember, because I'm terrible for not remembering things. Right. What's your favourite parts of What is your favourite part of Notts or Nottinghamshire?
My favourite place in Nottingham is probably Wollerton Hall.
Yeah?
Yeah. Because, like I say, being a country bumpkin from Derbyshire, it's just nice to have like big, wide open areas, because my grandparents lived in a small mining town called Wirksworth, and literally as you left their back garden, it was fields for miles. It was all that there was around there. And I just used to spend hours and days just wandering around those fields, just entertaining myself. And, you know, there was like a hole at the top of this hill, and it was bracketed off by this like really rubbishly put up twig fence.
Oh, right.
Which you could easily fall down, because you could just walk past it, and, you know, I'm pretty sure it would crumble if you touched it.
Was this hole a mine shaft?
It was, but it was also a cave, because like, I suppose this could come into the myth part. It's not Nottingham, but it's like a
That's fine.
Interesting thing.
It's local, I suppose.
Yeah, it's local if you're in Derby. And but yeah, there was the Wirksworth, like loads of mine shafts up there for like digging out lead. But there was this particular one at the top of the hill. I don't think it was specifically a mine shaft, but it goes down into the earth.
Yeah.
And inside of this cave was an island surrounded by water with like a woolly rhino skeleton in it.
Oh, right.
Yeah, and it was just, I didn't...
Hang on. A woolly rhino skeleton?
Yeah.
Not like a mammoth?
No, not a mammoth. It
Oh,
was,
right.
It was,
Okay.
it was a woolly rhino.
That.
Yeah. It was a woolly rhino, but like, when I think about it, you think of like, you know where like Gandalf's fighting the Balrog?
Yes.
And they're like falling down this tiny cave, and there's this big island surrounded by water. That's what I imagine it's like, but it's blatantly probably not.
Fair play.
But yeah, there was just like a woolly rhino skeleton found there, and I think it's gone to the National History Museum in London,
Right.
or it goes like around the world. But it was found like perfectly intact.
Yeah. And it's not moving, obviously.
No.
No, it's definitely dead.
Yeah, definitely dead. There's no Jurassic Park in Wirksworth.
Fair enough.
But yeah, that was like one of the standout weird stories from my childhood, because I always used to make my granddad walk right to the top of this hill so I could look at it. You couldn't see anything. It was just a bit of a hole in the ground.
Yeah.
And he used to hate it because it meant walking up a massive hill.
How old was he at the time?
60s.
Well, yeah.
He's on phone. Yeah, I found it absolutely fascinating that, like, you know, like a skeleton of a prehistoric beast was found in this like hole in the ground.
That is awesome.
Yeah.
That really is. Right. What is your most treasured musical object? Now, it doesn't have to be a musical instrument. It can just be anything related to music.
Well, I've got a guitar at home, which is a Dean Razorback V-shaped guitar. I remember when I first saw it, fell in love with it, because it was like V-shaped, spiky, black and red.
Yeah.
I was like, this is like the most metal thing I've ever seen. And you know what you're like when you're younger? If it's spiky, it's blatantly going to be better. Like,
All right, fair enough.
But it was like a high-end like Dean guitar, and it appeared on like a for sale page and it was £350. And I remember I sold a load of things so I could like buy this guitar, and I was like £50 short. And I remember I'd gone to visit like my grandma and granddad, and like, you know, as you do, you kind of go, oh, how's things? And you go, oh yeah, I've just been living in Nottingham. Like, it's when I just joined the band. It was just before we played our first gig. And I remember I was £50 short and like subtly dropped the hint to my grandma. Don't know why, because like, you know, I've never been one for like just going up to grandma and going, can I have some money, please?
Yeah.
But yeah, she just turned around. She went, there you go buy it. And I was like, oh my God. And it was only a few weeks later that she died because she was very poorly. But I named that guitar Grandma, and that's like the only musical instrument that I've got like personal attachment to. I'd never sell it, never get rid of it. Like, you know, I swap and change guitars all the time, but that one guitar has a lot of sentimental meaning to it because my grandma just helped me buy this ideal
Get
guitar.
across that last hurdle.
Yeah.
Wow, that is sentimental attachment at the highest level.
Yeah.
It really is. And to be honest, like you were saying, you kind of drop subtle hints and all that. And I do understand that one. But my grandparents have always been very quirky in that way because my gran would give me 20 quid and say, don't tell your granddad. My granddad would give me 20 quid and then say, don't tell your gran. So you stood there with like 40 quid going, cool, but I can't tell anyone. Oh no, that's really nice. That really is. And to name it Grandma, I think. Grandma? Yeah. It's awesome. Guitars,
I know.
They're a life of their own, aren't they?
Yeah.
How many do you own yourself then?
At the moment, I've got a bass guitar, an acoustic guitar, 7-string, and 2 Razorbacks. But I'm selling one of the Razorbacks because I've realised that I don't need it.
Yeah, does it not get played enough?
No, I mean, I've got the one I call Grandma, and I've got my 7-string, and they're both in the tuning for the band.
Yeah.
And but I've just got this black and silver one in a case, and I'm never using it. It's not in the right tuning, and I just don't find the time to play in different tunings at the moment. So it's just taking up space. So I'm trying to sell that because, well, I don't need it.
No, fair enough.
I did have a brief period of like, you know, the generic guitar hoarding where it's like, wow, that's cheap. Oh, I can't pass that to opportunity down. And all of a sudden you've got guitar cases everywhere. And yeah, one day I just decided, don't need that, and started selling them. And I think it makes the guitars that you keep a bit more special because I think when you do have a massive collection of guitars, I mean, I understand people who do have massive collections of guitars because they're like a session musician or they play in lots of different tunings.
I was going to say, what do you class as a massive collection? Because I have 15.
Do you find active time to play all of them?
No.
And that's a massive collection.
My marital bedroom that I share with my wife, they're currently 5 of them spread out in there, and she's got all her personal effects, and then there's all these guitars, so people think it's quite cool that they're there. But unfortunately, they do need dusting. Especially my Washburn at the moment, which is my favourite guitar ever. And I looked at it this morning and went, I really don't have time to dust that, but I really must. Like I've said a couple of times before, if I hadn't have sold every guitar I've ever bought, I'd probably have about 25, 30 of them.
Yeah.
Right, next question. Alt, rock, metal, or other? What got you into the genre?
Well, like I say, I was raised on like Guns N' Roses kind of stuff, Def Leppard, which can't stand Def Leppard these days. But it was just a general progression of like, you know, going through school, you kind of make friends with people. And like, you know, I was really sporty as a kid. I'm still quite sporty now, but around Nottingham, I don't know many sporty people, so I don't get much opportunity to do much sporty things. But going through school, you kind of you start getting into bands and you catch wind that someone else that you kind of know through a friend also likes metal, rock kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So you start speaking to them because, you know, they know about bands that you may have never heard of before. And that's just where this like idea of expanding your music comes from.
Yeah.
And it just kind of builds from there. I was in secondary school and I'd just started to get into like heavier stuff. Like I say earlier, Guitar Hero introduced me to Slipknot, and there was this kid I always saw wandering around with a Slipknot hoodie. Yeah. And one day I just walked up to him and I was like, is there any other bands you can recommend? Really awkwardly.
I can just imagine you running up to someone and shouting, is there any other bands you can recommend? And the guy going, ah!
Yeah, and like it must have been so weird from his point of view. And he was like, I don't know, like Korn, and I was like, right, Korn. Went home, listened to Korn, and like, you know, it just expanded from there. We ended up becoming friends and actually being in a different band together when we got a bit older. But yeah, it just kind of, one thing that I kind of miss these days, and I'm not saying this to be another one of those, there's no new bands out there these days, but you know, when you first get into like metal,
Yeah.
and you know, all of a sudden one day you'll discover power metal, and it's just completely different to anything else you've ever heard before. And then you discover thrash metal, and then you discover death metal, and like there's just so many different things, and all the big bands you didn't know, you come across them, and it's like a light bulb moment, because all of a sudden there's like this sound and aspect of their playing.
Right, sorry, as you were saying.
Yeah, as I was saying, like, you know, you discover things like death metal, and they've got these aspects about them which just are so different from other things. I mean, I remember when I first heard like metal stream growl vocals.
Yeah.
It was a bit much for me. I was like, you know, I'd never heard anything like it, and I did like the thing that I imagine most people do when they hear it and go, ooh, I like the guitars and the music, but the vocals are a bit much. But then you kind of, it's like learning a new language, I suppose, because everyone goes, it's just noise, can't hear what they're saying. But the more you listen to it and the more you kind of try to learn to hear it, it's like distortion for a guitar.
Yeah.
You know, that's how I see metal vocals. And like, you know, it's not as clean and crisp as clean singing, but it's got an extra layer to it. It's got a lot of aggression, and that's what I've always loved about metal music. I've always been a really calm, laid-back person.
Yeah.
And heavy metal, it's not like an outlet for when I'm angry or anything. It's just like, it's the power behind it. There's so much kind of that hair-raising moment when like real fat, dirty guitars kick in, and like there's a drum fill which is just insane, and you kind of go, wow, you know.
When you listen to the couple of podcasts that you listened to, did you listen to the news section where Matty from Moordown was singing? Because he took about 10 takes getting that. Because I wrote that piece of music, and he listened to it. He asked me to put the click on, and believe it or not, it's so precisionally, his voice is in the right point for that part, and I think that's what you were trying to get at. As most people would listen to, say, death metal or black metal and think, oh, they're just screaming, they're shouting, but they're actually doing it at right points and actually vocalizing, like you said, with distortion.
Yeah, it's just kind of, you obviously learn over time. It's like when you get death metal bands with like big spiky logos. People can't read that. You look closely, you can read it 99% of the time. There are a few.
Okay, there has been a couple of guests.
There has been a few.
We have talked about this whole death metal and black metal logos, and the fact that sometimes I just can't read them.
No.
But no, if you think, okay, we must do a masterclass. I will interview you again. We'll probably do a video of actually how to decipher.
How to read.
How to read.
How to read metal.
Carry on. Sorry.
But yeah, it's... I've kind of lost my train of thought now.
Well, you were going to say whether you liked alt rock, metal, or other.
Oh, right.
Well, this is cool. Keep going.
Yeah. Like I say, metal's definitely my favourite. I know it's such a vague thing because, as I was saying before, you've got power metal, death metal, all these different kinds of, like, you know, there's like slam metal now, and there's like porno grind and all
Porno
these
Grind. I haven't heard that one yet.
porno grind.
What's that about?
Right, porno grind is like, if you've heard of grindcore,
Yep.
like, you know,
Napalm Death.
real small snare drum and kind of like inhale pitch streamy vocals. Porno grind is grindcore, but with like, it's not like porn noises in the background, and it's all like pornographically themed. A bit more extreme, I think, but yeah, that's like one extreme to like another.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, it's just so diverse in everything that you can listen to. I mean, my specific favorites are like the nu metal kind of era.
Yeah.
You know, bands like Mudvayne and Pantera. I know they weren't a nu metal band, but like...
Actually, they were.
Were they?
Yep, they were classed under it, and if you listened, if you read Metal Hammer a while back, they actually did top 10 new metal bands, and Mudvayne came up in it. I can't remember what number they were.
I thought you meant Pantera.
Oh no, I didn't mean
Like Pantera
Pantera.
band.
No, okay, I thought you were talking about Mudvayne one.
No. But,
Okay, embarrassing.
Anyway, strolling along.
Yeah.
Like to say, metal's definitely my favourite. It's, as I said before, it's got that power and hair-raising moments behind it, which I don't get from some other genres of music. Because, like to say, I like rock music. Like, I was raised on Guns N' Roses, Queen, all that kind of stuff. Yeah. And it's got like catchy hooks to it, but it's like there's just metal music itself for me. Like I say, it's like when breakdown comes in and it's like slow, fat, dirty. It's just like aggression, like audible.
Yeah.
And that's like pinched harmonics. I remember the first time I heard a pinched harmonic, and I was like, that's like the most amazing thing I've ever heard in a guitar riff.
I think the first time I heard a pinched harmonic was Ozzy Osbourne's solo stuff was that wild.
Yeah.
But then everyone started, what's the word you say? They started bringing it more to light. I'd heard about it. I literally heard it so many times. And then Lamb of God came out, and there's like pinched harmonics all over the place. And everyone's like, listen to this. And I'm like, yeah, you know, Zakk Wylde used to do that, and Randy Rhoads and all that. And they were like, well, this is Lamb of God.
I do love Lamb of God, though.
I know, I gotta be honest, I love Lamb of God. It's one of them bands that, again, people say, oh, I can't understand the lyrics. Name your most influential band or artist.
Well, there's two, I'd probably say.
Fine.
Because I think like the most incredible guitarist I ever saw, not live, because he died before I kind of got properly into music, was Dimebag Darrell.
Yeah.
Like I say, I play a guitar designed by him. I've got Cowboys from Hell tattooed on my wrist, which my dad tattooed on for me.
Wow.
It was my first ever tattoo. And I just say, there's like that live video of Domination from Russia.
Oh, right.
Like by Pantera.
I'm going to look this up and put it in the show notes.
It's from Monsters of Rock, Moscow or something. It's like a massive airfield.
Yeah.
And it's just the energy on stage from all the members, but especially like, it's just the playing style. And I remember seeing in a video, Dimebag Darrell refers to it as the Texas Bend, I think he calls it. And he's like, you can play guitar, note, everything perfectly, but every so often just flick the string a bit so it bends.
Yeah.
Not like perfectly in time. It's kind of like a swing aspect of it. And I incorporate that a lot into how I play, because being a drummer, rhythmically, that's my whole thing.
Yeah.
But I just think it adds so much personality to the songs. Like, anyone can play Walk by Pantera, but it doesn't sound like when Dimebag Darrell plays Walk.
No,
because
definitely not.
it's in the fingers and the bends and how everything goes. Like, note for note, I mean, we'd all be listening to Ultimate Guitar, or what is it? Not Ultimate Guitar. You know, you've got that guitar software that plays everything in MIDI.
No.
No.
Not ringing a bell at the moment. I've heard and seen a lot of them.
Yeah, it's used for like learning guitar, but it's all like note for note MIDI horrible sounds. But yeah, I think that's what I mean. Certain musical types, it's like my other big influence of like music, which probably reflects in my playing style more, is like Wayne Static of Static Hexx.
Oh yeah,
Because
the tribute band Static Hexx is coming to Nottingham soon, aren't they?
Yeah, it's all the original members from Wisconsin Death Trip with a mystery vocalist, but everyone kind of knows who the vocalist is.
Is it Axl Rose? Because he seems to be the mystery vocalist on a lot of acts.
Well, there's one band who's on their worldwide tour with them, and they're the only constant band. And from listening to the preview, you can kind of tell it's him.
Come on, tell me. I'm sat here going, come on.
Well,
who do you think it is?
Well, the big thing that Static Hexx said, it's not about who's singing for them, because it's a memorial show for Wayne. They don't want to big up this new singer as like, oh yeah, he's been given this great chance to sing for Static Hexx. And they don't want any of that. They just want it a memorial show of farewell, last hurrah.
Yeah.
But it's definitely Edsel Dope from Dope.
Okay.
Dope are on every stretch of their worldwide tour. And from listening to, because they re-recorded some songs and they're releasing some unreleased music that Wayne Static recorded before he died.
Yeah.
Which I can't wait for. But yeah, they've released like a minute clip of a re-recording of one song, and he plays the same guitar, his hair's just the right length to do that big spiky up hair. You know, he's got gloves on his hands so you can't see his hand tattoos, and you can kind of tell by his voice. But I can't wait for it, because like I say, I love Static Hexx. A while back, I got told that Drowning Pool came into the Sal.
Oh, right.
Yeah, I know this is kind of like a side thing, but
no, that's fine. You're allowed to segue as much as you like.
Yeah, and yeah, Drowning Pool came in. This was like 5-6 years ago, apparently. I don't know why I said apparently. 5-6 years ago, Drowning Pool came in. They made friends with Nicky because he was at the bar, big, spiky hair he had back in the day, and they were instantly like, "Well, you look cool as fuck, so we'll make friends with you." It was a karaoke night, and after many shots, apparently, they convinced Nicky to get up on stage. They were like, "Well, if you're a singer for a band, let's hear you," you know.
Yeah.
So he got up on stage. I don't know what song he sang, but he came off. They were like, "Mate, that was fucking incredible. We love it." And it might have been the shots talking, it might have not been, but they said, "Next time we come to the UK, your band can open for us."
All right.
And we were like, you know, when I got told this, I was like, "Mate, that's like wicked news. Drowning Pool the killer." And you know, they exchanged names on Facebook, and like there was actual messages back and forth, so it was a real thing. And anyway, tour gets announced. Drowning Pool co-headline tour with Wayne Static, and I was like, "Shit the bed, man." This is like Wayne Static. I'm not gonna get my chance to play with Wayne Static. I can't fucking wait for this. And then he died on like the day after Halloween, like 4 or 5 years ago.
Yeah.
So obviously the tour was cancelled.
Yeah.
It's not like Drowning Pool were gonna go, "Well, we'll go out and do it anyway." But yeah. I think when Wayne Static died was the only time I've ever like mourned a musician's passing. Because when David Bowie died and Lemmy died, it was like, oh well, you know, bit shit. But you know, getting told that like Wayne Static had died, it was completely out the blue for me, because I thought, you know, he used to be hard on his drugs, but he's cleaned up. But obviously, things creep back up, don't they? So
I completely relate to that, because when Lemmy died, as you said, I was a bit like, well, the guy was getting on.
Yeah.
When a load of other artists had passed recently, I just was kind of like, okay, I didn't know him personally.
Yeah.
And I kind of slated people, and I'll put my hand up and say I slated people for when they were going, "Oh, I can't believe so-and-so's died, it's so sad, this, that, and the other." And then Keith Flint died. And he was an inspiration to me. because his vocals, alongside Liam's writing and musical style, when I first heard Fat of the Land, I was like, fuck. You can put metal into dance music, and this is what I'm going to be doing with another project. But it kind of hit me in the chest. And you know, when you get that big thump in the chest when something ultimately happens. So now I'm kind of not judging people as harshly when they become so attached to a band, because that's what we do as musicians, is to influence and change people's lives, I think, sometimes.
I mean...
As well as trying to get drunk and enjoy yourself on stage and play a most killer riff ever.
As long as you make enough money from the show to afford the beer bill, you know, I think most bands would be happy with that.
Oh, exactly. Right. Name one thing you're excited about in the upcoming 6 months.
Ooh.
And he's thinking. And he's thinking.
It's definitely the Static Hexx show.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Cool.
I think that's 6 months away. I think it's September. I mean, there might be something happening at Rock City for my band in September, but I can't talk about anything.
No, that's cool. But keep our eyes out. At the end of the day, you're gonna have Flirting with Corpses put in the show notes. So definitely go to the show notes, go check them out.
Yeah, but fingers crossed. We've been told that if there's a Nottingham date on this tour, we'll be playing, but they don't know the tour dates yet. But it's supporting someone pretty cool.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Someone in the same genre?
No.
Oh, okay.
Well,
fair enough.
it's kind of... it's a really weird one with Flirting with Corpses, because when we first started, me and Nicky joined the band, as I said, like 6 years ago, and everyone wanted to be like Misfits 2.0.
Yeah.
And, you know, there's a whole genre of like horror punk where that's the world to them. That's what they want to do. It's kind of like evil horror movie lyrics and bouncy, happy pop punk riffs or horror punk riffs. You know, sometimes it's darker and eviler. But that's not my forte of writing. I've always written like I say, like Static Hexx, Cold Chamber kind of style riffs. That's always been my thing, where like the music should be dark and haunting like the lyrics are.
Yeah.
So that's kind of the way Flirting with Corpses ended up going, because there's actually no original members in this band.
No, there isn't. I'm seriously sat here listening to you. I'm thinking, hang on, isn't the band primarily you and Nicky and now Jake?
And James.
And James.
Yeah.
Sorry, I didn't know who. Yeah. I didn't know. I don't think I've met James.
No, I don't think I've met James. James is the drummer.
Yeah.
But it's been an absolute roller coaster of a band, because, like I say, we joined to replace their singer/guitarist who left. Yeah. And then the drummer left. And then the guitarist left to join another band. And then the bass player left because the drummer left. So we got another drummer in and found another bass player. They both left around the same time 2 years ago, and then we found Jake and James. So yeah, there's no original member left in this band, which is quite bizarre when you think about it, because there's normally like that one original founding member, but no, there's just I mean, when we joined the band, we got told that they'd done one gig with their previous singer. It went horrendously bad, so they were just scrapping that out the book. Right. And they said, this will be the original members of the band from now on. We're just pretending that the first gig that didn't happen. And then slowly, as people left the band, opinions changed. And the original Facebook page got taken down, which was annoying because it had like over 1,000 fans on it. Yeah. We had to start again from scratch. And there was a bit of a discussion with the guitarist who came up with the name, saying that he wasn't comfortable with us using the name because there's no original member left. But he left on his own accord. I could understand completely if we turned around and said, you're out the band, when he was the only original member left and he thought up with the name. I can understand getting upset about that. But he left of his own accord to join a different band and then tried to say, you can't use that band name. So we did change briefly, to be called A Murder of Crows, but we had a big magazine article a few months prior in Devolution magazine,
Yes.
which is like the biggest independent UK alternative magazine.
Must read that more.
Yeah. And we had like a 6-page spread, like massive interview, photos, pictures from gigs.
Yeah.
Got a real big push as Flirting with Corpses. And as soon as we changed the name, I had a message from the director, Nikki, saying, if you change your name, we're not going to work with you anymore. Because we've given you a massive push as this band.
Yeah.
And then you change your name. So we just had to change back. And we spoke to the original member. We were like, we have to keep the name. And he was like, you know what? It was a heat of the moment argument.
Yeah.
He says you can carry on using the name because, like I said, he left of his own accord.
I think emotions run quite highly with musicians quite often.
Yeah,
and
people put a lot of thought and feeling into, even if it's just the name of a band. If someone came up with that and then all of a sudden it's taken away from them,
yeah,
it's still something that they contributed mentally. So I can understand why people get upset about things.
And this is why I personally tried to make it as a solo artist, and I've taken my name on into my studio, which is Regular Riot. And I'll tell you the story behind it. I was dating someone from, I think she was from Bristol or something like that, but she turned around one day and just flippantly said, "You're a regular riot, aren't you?" And I was like, I like that. And I didn't really think about it for a couple of years until I started writing music again. I was like, well, if I'm going to put out music, I need to give myself a name. And for some reason, it clicked in my head. She'd said that. So I kind of took it on, and now it's kind of sticking. So, well, it's going to stick a lot more, hopefully. But it's something different.
That's where Flirting with Corpses came from, because, like I say, the original member, like, I can't remember if it was months or years prior, but he had, like, real long black hair, like, down to his waist, like, you know, wore eyeshadow, eyeliner, proper, like, gothy kind of image. And one of his mates turned around to him and he says, "Do you know what? You look like the kind of guy who's, like, flirts with corpses."
Cool.
And he was like, "Flirting with corpses." Cool name.
Now, if you see them all on stage, you'd think most of them flirt with corpses these days. Right, I'm going to grab us on to the last question. We're going to then bring it to a close. In your opinion, what makes the Notts alternative scene great?
I think it's the fact that there's quite a loyal following in Nottingham for especially metal. I mean, we have like I say, we put Wildside on here, which is all like your Motley Crue, your Kiss, and every month you get people from all over the country coming specifically for that night. And,
A lot of people have said that.
Yeah, and you know, it's great because it keeps Nottingham going, it keeps us going. I mean, it's like Hexx is building up its valiant following of people who go, right, third Saturday of the month, that's when I'm going out. That's when I'm going to listen to metal for 6 hours, get real drunk, and have a great time. But it's like with bands, I've noticed, have real loyal followings. I mean, it's like, I think one of the best examples is probably Witch Tripper.
Yeah.
Put in so much work constantly. But, you know, they did in here, they did in there. I remember speaking to Stoff, and I think he said, or I think I read it on United in Fuzz, but when they started, no one had given them a gig. No one was interested. So they made their own promotions page, United in Fuzz. So I'm putting on their own gigs with a few other bands that they were friends with. And now, Witch Tripper are like real big, you know. They're headlining festivals, they're playing like every weekend, if not Friday and Saturday, you know.
And they've just announced that they're going to be on the Sophie stage in Bloodstock in 2019.
Exactly. So, you know, they put in so much effort. And there was a gig we had here last Halloween, which was a Total Rock takeover.
Yeah.
Total Rock's like a radio station for like, Nick does like interviews with like bands and...
That's Nick Alexander.
Yeah, Nick Zander, yeah. And he puts on every so often a Total Rock takeover gig where it's local musicians, which they'll take an album, like an iconic album. I remember once they did System of a Down steal this album here.
Yeah.
And it's, like I say, it's just different vocalists and a backing band made of local musicians. And we did one here, which it was going to be a Rob Zombie themed one. So immediately I was like, Nick, you gotta let me do it. And he was like, yeah, sure, man, I'll get you down. And I think in the end, we actually only ended up doing about 4 Rob Zombie songs. But we did it as like a new metal era gig. And there was like Cold Chamber, there was Fear Factory. No, we didn't end up doing Fear Factory. But there was like loads, there was like Static Hexx, there was all these like iconic bands which I grew up listening to.
Yeah.
And Chris was the bass player in that covers gig, and it was like incredible playing with him.
Chris
Stoff
from
Witch Stripper.
Stoff.
Yeah,
Witch Stripper. Yeah, sorry.
And he was the bass player in it, and it was just such like so cool to play with him because he's such a great bass player and he just instantly picks everything up like that.
Yeah.
But it's also the fact that like this guy's like going off playing gigs all over, putting headlining festivals, and I'm playing right next to him on my guitar.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I thought that was a really cool experience personally.
No, I think that's an amazing experience, and I wish I could probably do it myself at some point. But it's just sprung to mind, but because we just started talking about them, and because the fact that they're going to be playing in Bloodstock, which congratulations, dudes.
Yeah.
And hopefully you're listening to this now, because the song after this part of the interview is going to be one of your songs from the new album, which you all sent me like without a hesitation. So I'm actually going to play another Witch Stripper song after this. I think that's absolute awesome, and I think it's a credit to yourself, especially being the events manager of one of the most iconic rock pubs in Nottingham, that you're doing so well at getting this place filled. Like, we're sat here, as I said at the beginning, in the attic itself, so it might sound a little boomy and a little echoey on the podcast, but sat here with no one in it, it's like I'm surprised how much space there is in this place.
Yeah.
It's awesome. So, right.
Can I throw in one last thing?
Go on, you're allowed to throw in whatever you want.
Right.
It's your podcast.
Well, it's another thing for my band, but it's something also to do with, it's to do with my mate Lucas, who runs it's a page. They kind of do podcasts. They do like vlogs. And it's about like the horror community, whether it's like horror metal, horror punk, like horror movies, just anything spooky and gruesome. But
what's his name, sorry?
Lucas Chapel.
Right, tell him to get in contact with me, and I'll be sat here with him soon, hopefully.
He lives quite far up north, so it might have to be a video chat.
Yeah, that's fine.
He does them all the time. Yeah, but there's a film being made at the moment, which is it's called Overtime. And it's a horror film which is made by, it's an independent, but it's being made by Mario Trevone, who is he writes Reaper Comics, which is like a horror series of comic books. And it's like the biggest selling comic book in the UK that's independent. Yeah. So he's making a horror film. So he got in touch with Lucas at the Undead 13 and said, like, you know, we want to get you on board, obviously, because they're going to give coverage for it.
Yeah.
But it also, like, it came to light that they were going to make a promotional album for it.
Yeah.
So, like, going to get, like, horror-themed bands from all over the world to write songs for this album. And we got given a slot on it. So we've been writing scrupulously to kind of keep up with like the high caliber of other bands which are potentially playing on it.
Okay.
I mean, we haven't been told what the other bands are, but we've been told that in the horror metal, horror punk scene, there's some big ones.
Yeah.
But it's just great that we get, because we're so lucky in this band, we just get thrown opportunities every so often, just because, like, you hear it when you're younger. It's not what you know, it's who you know. And through my job, through working in a pub, like even before I was an events manager, just meeting random people, being outgoing and just speaking to people and just putting your foot in the door, you get opportunities all the time. And like I say, like we're going to be on this promotional CD for a horror film that's like going to be pretty big.
Cool. So I do have to ask, as in a personal interest, are you going somewhere to record that then?
No.
All right, you have to record it yourself.
Yeah, we're recording it ourselves.
You're going to take me up on my offer. Gotta be honest.
We're currently recording because at the moment we're just recording everything on my computer because,
that's fine.
Like I say, I did audio engineering in college. Yeah. I've got a MacBook which is broken.
Yeah,
but I've got a friend fixing it very soon.
Just look. Here's my MacBook. It works.
Yeah.
I can tell you how to fix it if you really want.
No, it's it's getting fixed. It's actually a soldering problem.
Oh, it's a soldering problem, is it?
Yeah.
Oh.
But
they do get very hot.
Yeah.
Not that anyone else can see what we're talking about, but I will take a picture.
Yeah, but I've got Logic and I've got loads of recording software which the band's all contributed to.
So you use Logic then?
Yeah, cool. I use Logic personally.
And let me just turn the camera. Ooh. There we go.
There we go. Photos.
Why not?
But yeah, so I've been recording that. I mean, I can show you later or email it to you so you can hear the kind of standard of recording that is going to be doing. I mean, there's no vocals for it yet because, as I say, my computer is being fixed next week. So we've got, I think it's like till the end of May to get it finished. We've got most of the guitars done.
As I said to you, if you need any help, give me a shout. Because I work on budgets and trying to help people, trying to get my name out there.
Because you've got your studio, obviously.
And I also own a remote rig that I can bring 10 channels of recording and mic up everything. I've got new personally made mics. Even the mics sat in front of us now, I've rebuilt from the ground up.
Yeah.
So hence why they've got a little bit of blue and silver on them. But
nothing wrong with blue and silver.
Right, is there anybody you'd like to give a shout out to before we bring this to an end?
Oh, I'd like to give a shout out to my boss, Jason, because as of yesterday, like I said, I've been doing the events for 2 years, but he's actually been running the Sal for 2 years as of yesterday.
As of yesterday?
As of yesterday.
So that's the 12th of April?
12th of April, yeah.
Wow. I completely forgot he started working here on my birthday.
Yeah. Because I only found out because it came up on my events that we held like a big party last year for it to say like well done for running it for a year, and you know it's constantly improving. Like I said earlier, we've got the pool table now. We're making constant adjustments to the pub to increase things, make it a better pub because we had some work to do from previous times of like building things back up. But
it's Nicky again.
Yeah, Nicky again. Say hello again.
Yes.
But yeah, it's constantly improving here. And I can tell that as someone who's worked here under
numerous people.
Yeah, numerous bosses.
Cool. Right. Thank you very much for today. It's been absolutely interesting. You've brought up some things that I'd never even thought about, some things I'm going to have to look up, and I will probably be asking you for a few links and stuff coming up. But thank you very much. It's been brilliant. So, cheers.
You're very welcome.
Thank you very much, Knots Rockers, for listening to NottsRockCast over YouTube. If you would like to check us out on your favourite podcast player, please search NottsRockCast. And don't forget, if you're on social media platforms, give us a like, give us a share. You'll find us at NottsRockCast. Anyway, till next time, keep it Knots, keep it rocks.
NottsRockCast is an association with Regular Riot. Welcome to NottsRockCast, the Notts Alternative Scene podcast. And here is your host, Jethro D, bringing you everything Notts and Rocks.